What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode. The squad is back. We have Milos, Sky, Bryce, me, and a special guest all the way from the 20th century, Tsar Nicholas II. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We have Chase Haggard here today. He's very well known in the Orthodox internet spheres, mainly on Discord, YouTube as well, in debating. Welcome, and thank you for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It took me a while, about 100 years or so to get here, but appreciate it.
All right. It's a base lick, though. It's a base lick. Anyway, the subject today is atheism and the pit of atheism, to be exact. So we have Yogurt back, or Bryce, and I always question him on these topics first. Well, this one is a little bit easier, I think, than normal, but Mr. Bryce, please tell me, what is atheism?
What is atheism? I believe it's it's a positive or not positive. It's like a complete rejection of God or any kind of theism or any kind of anything, I guess, of that nature. Like, it's not like agnostic or something to where like you don't know.
Funny that you mention agnostic. What's the difference?
Well, I may be wrong on this. I believe like it's where you just don't necessarily, you just say that you don't know, or it could be, but you're kind of taking the stance that there's no reason to believe in anything.
Or you're doubting.
Or
that there's a God.
I don't know if it's like doubting. I would say that it's more like you almost you affirm that you don't believe that there's a God, but you're willing to say I don't know, or you technically say I don't know. I don't know. Right. Probably Chase is better at this.
Yeah, I wanted to ask him if he has anything to add on.
Yeah, I think both of them are, atheist without God. So on an emotional level or on a personal level, there is a difference between atheism and agnosticism. But when it comes to philosophy and debate, there's no such thing, because both lack that foundational belief in God. So when someone goes, "Oh, I'm an agnostic," and they'll try to play kind of the sophist and go, "Well, I don't have a position on this." Do you hold the belief in God? No, I don't. Okay, so your position results in the same exact pitfalls as atheism every single time. And that's kind of the tact I go when people refuse to take a position.
Yeah, that's well explained. So let's jump into something of more depth. Sky, give me an argument that atheists make against the existence of God.
Well, one argument I definitely know is they'll just jump straight into like science and evolution and all like those whole plethora of things, like, oh, the science, there's like some will even say, oh, I've had somebody even tell me, oh, well, there's no proof that Jesus even existed. There's no like, I've had so many people say, how do you even know that he even existed, or all that stuff, or this could have been like this could have just been some random like occult from the Roman times and all that stuff, or just straight up argue that religion is like some primitive thing, and that they believe in the science. They believe science, so they just make science their god ultimately, in my opinion. But and they just jump into like, oh, we have all this evidence that evolution is key and that evolution has happened, and you can see it. Just read some Darwin, or just go to science class, or just do some that. Well, that's all you got to do. It's so easy. You're dumb for not even thinking like us, and that's my experience.
So going full Reddit mod, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Reddit mod.
Can we zoom in onto a specific argument? I know you debated Chase, an atheist, not long ago. What did she have as her main argument?
She did the typical Matt Dillahunty level. She's an acolyte of Matt Dillahunty, so she did. There's no proof, and then when I dug into it, I got her to admit that by proof she meant physical empirical evidences. So typically what these people do is the lens that they're looking at the world through is everything must be physical, everything must be material. And those are the only things that you can say are true. But then that falls because that relies on logic, reason, self, and external world, all these things that you're automatically assuming and bringing to the table that are non-physical from the outset. And yeah, that's kind of the typical Reddit tier materialist view.
So it was fair to say you won the debate, for sure.
I think Jack Daniels won that debate, to be honest. Not even halfway, like a quarter into the debate, she goes, "Oh, I shouldn't have drank that Jack."
yeah, I saw that. I saw. Hey, Sky, I hope that isn't Jack Daniels, but we're fasting right now.
Gallon
It's
jug.
water. Good. Anyway, Milos, do you have any experience with debating people that don't know or like are convinced that there's no God out there?
Yeah, but most of time they had like pretty weak arguments, and you can like really tell most of them were just like obsessed with the world of today, with like worldly desires, and trying to live in this what I call this fake world of overconsumption, media, this and that, and they would spout some nonsense, like about I just like to live in the moment and vibe, like pretty brain dead arguments. So usually if I would talk about it with them, they would quickly stop after a minute, because I haven't met any person in real life who would debate against me.
Oh, they're scared.
Well, maybe because I'm an immigrant with a big beard. Oh, go away,
the big
immigrants.
beards help. They help. They help. I'm sorry, yogurt.
They're like, man, this guy has way too much testosterone. I can't be arguing against him.
If God's not real, how am I so Chad?
Yeah, exactly. Bro, look at us. No, I'm kidding. No pride. I see. And the famous argument, if God real, why bad thing happen? If y'all know about that. Strahinja, welcome to the podcast. The fellow jazz musician. That's him.
I just wanted to state that when Strahinja joined, that was for some reason the smoothest Strahinja join I've ever seen in my life. He just joined, his camera was already set up. He didn't have to like adjust anything. He didn't barge right in with like his audio like going through the roof. So Strahinja, good on you for joining perfectly.
Thank you.
Exactly.
I'm getting better.
Yeah. Maybe I don't know if this is your field, Strahinja, but if God real, why bad thing happened? What can you tell us a little bit about that and how we should see that from a
because like people who say that, like I was confronted often in the music industry. There's like a French rapper who said, well, if God real, then why do young girls suffer, for example? That's like a famous
Who's the rapper?
I think he goes by Lom Pal, which means the pale man.
I met
him. You met him. He's not a very chatty individual. But anyway, how I would argue against that is that first of all, our understanding of God is not at all the same as theirs. They think that God is here to make our lives nice and to, basically shower us with flowers and good feelings and hedonistic feelings. That's not at all like how we see God in Orthodoxy at all. Like we are responsible for our decisions, and God gave us the liberty to do bad things, but he didn't impose bad things on us by any means. All the bad things that happen in the world happen because of man and happen because of our transgressions to God's commandments. So like we see God as above good and evil, and good and evil being in the realm of man. We are punished in the originals by committing the original sin. When Adam and Eve decided to access the knowledge, they decided to access that luxury, but with that they access a certain responsibility as well. And God made the laws of the universe not according to us, but according to what is just. So this whole like man center of the universe, like man-centric kind of way of thinking that is now happening in the West is completely not compatible with Orthodox. Like those people, they don't at all have the same worldview or the same values. So for them, like, why is not God giving me hedonism? Why is God not giving me pleasure? Well, God is not here to give you pleasure. You know, that's a big difference there. We need to understand.
I think that was explained well, indeed. So if God not real, why good thing happen? You know, basically,
So-
that's the gist of it.
Chase, do you feel do you think I guess atheists can they be like their morals, or oftentimes you hear that they can self-justify their their morality, or like good and evil, like they don't necessarily need a god. Like, what would you say to that?
Yeah, so there's a good paper by Russ Mannion called The Contingency of Knowledge and Revelatory Theism. And he breaks down two different basic epistemologies: autonomous, right? Man locked inside his own sphere of reason just inside of his head, and theonomous, God revealed. And this doesn't get down into, more nuances of parsing out issues of different religions and showing them false. But just off of that, if autonomous morality can be just self-justified, then you're going to be a relativist now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you can just say, well, my morality is self-justified because of X, Y, and Z, I can say the same thing, and I can just say, well, orthodoxy is self-justified because you have no criteria to delineate and break things down from more true or less true, and you just need to accept that I'm right, and my view says you're wrong, so now it's a contradiction to say I'm right and you're right. And it's this is often the tact that people don't like with people like Jay and Father Deacon Dr. Ananias, who taught me how to go about argumentation. The reason people will try to use presup the same way that they use the word conspiracy theory to just go, I don't have to address you now, is because they can't address these things. And the issue is that the standard that they're holding themselves to, if they hold other people to it, it ends in just the most silly position you could ever be in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's phase something in, because Chase, I forgot to let yourself introduce yourself. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Maybe we could do that now, because this is pre-recorded anyway. So
Yeah, it's rewind time.
Chase, go ahead, please introduce yourself before we start. Because
my name is Chase Haggard. I'm a musician. I help out on the Orthodox Christian Discord. I do debates as well, and you can find me on Instagram at Chase Haggard Music. And
you're an Orthodox Christian, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. What jurisdiction do you go to?
Go Arch.
Go Arch. All right, Greek, the Greek one. Yeah.
Yep. Great priest. Great parish. My sister parish is also good, and it's kind of funny. Both priests, when old EP12 does something silly, I go, "Hey, did you see what he did?" And they always go, "Lord have mercy."
Then you know it's a good parish.
They're great.
For sure. My next question: can atheists lead meaningful and fulfilling lives without a belief in God? And how does this compare to the Orthodox perspective on the purpose of life?
Well,
Chase, that's for you.
It would depend on what you mean, right? So their life inherently, every single person, regardless of their worldview, they're made in the image and likeness of God. No matter how much they've distorted it and how silly that they've gotten, they are meaningful. They have telos, they have objective purpose behind them and for them, but they can go and move their will towards nonsense, right? Like the hedonism was mentioned before, and they can move that and move towards something that's actually meaningful, towards non-meaning. But they can also say, if you just want to say, well, meaningful in the sense of they feel it's meaningful, right? I feel like, putting on my gold fringe fedora every single morning and $100 on OnlyFans is gonna fulfill me. If you say that that's meaningful, then it's a different sense of the word than we're gonna mean it. And they can have some service level meaning to their life, but it's not
Mm,
it's not truth, right? Because truth is a person, truth is a who, and knowing truth and actual meaning is participation with God. So I
yeah.
think they'll inherently have a meaning. They have meaning to their lives. They can do good things, but they're groping around in the dark, and anything that they hit is going to be because of being made in that image and likeness of God. But being self-directed, they're going to fall in different ways than we fall, who are walking in the path, struggling, to walk it.
Very well explained. And I think as well that atheism is just an excuse to live a sinful life. Like, if I don't believe in a God, I don't have to justify myself before a God. So they just let themselves basically believe that there is no God. So they believe rather in themselves than someone who's going to, like, judge them on their sinful behavior. And I think that's the real reason why people are atheists. They just don't want to face the fact that their lives are not as good as they think they are. For example, like opening an OnlyFans, or just more simple things like just like stealing something in a supermarket, or
Buying that
I don't know.
fedora.
So, yeah, or that, or sleeping around with women, which is the most common thing young guys do nowadays. It's encouraged by the society as well, which gets more atheistic by the year, it seems, especially here in the West, in Europe. I don't know about the US, but my country is pretty atheistic. Like, if I ever tell people that I like believe in God and stuff, they always look at me funny or weird. So they always think I'm insane or something. Like, how can you be a Christian? Oh, they're so bad people. And like, you don't even know how bad the
Listen,
atheistic governments are. Yeah.
I'm just waiting for an Orthodox America. Okay, that's all I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for.
We all are, honestly.
coming.
But sometimes I'm thinking, well, not really, because if the U.S. government becomes like Orthodox, it's gonna corrupt Orthodoxy. In my opinion. I'm just sure it's gonna, like, everything America touches. But and no
Okay.
hate towards America. I
Okay.
love American people, but the government is
Going
iffy.
too far, Demos.
Sorry.
No, you're talking, and there's a difference, and this is an interesting topic because obviously all of us don't like the geopolitical machine that
Hmm.
is the American government, messing around in other people's affairs, doing all the things that the American government does. But culturally, America still is kind of a beacon to the rest of the world. And even during the weird events that happened in the last couple of years that changed the way
Hmm.
people lived for a while, when Americans started going, no, we're gonna behave normally, other countries looked at that and they said, no, America's not doing this anymore, we're not going to do it either. They're the free country, quote unquote. And so I think it is interesting, separating the machine and being the hammer of the world of the geopolitical arm and the culture. And in American culture, Americans they may not realize it, but we still export independent media all over the world, and people kind of look up to America in a sense, whether they realize it or not. The media they get is American.
That's a very good point. I remember on that episode we had Father Zechariah Lynch. I mentioned that, like how in Europe we copy everything what's like trending in America from the behavior. So I told Father Zechariah, so if you copy everything that, and Orthodoxy is growing so much in the US, I believe the young people in Europe will copy that too. At least I hope so, because it's growing
Well,
very good. Of course, it has its problem, but in every country it has this problem, whether people are too secular or maybe and there are some small instances with that share also that they're going too liberal. Sometimes that can happen in certain parishes as well. Those problems aren't new to Orthodoxy. And we will always have those problems, whether there are some parishes that go maybe too far to the right or too far to the left. But I truly believe with Orthodoxy becoming more and more popular with the young American population, it will take an effect on young people in Western Europe.
I agree. Maybe one advantage of Americanism in the end, but
like using globalism to our advantage. Normally we hate globalism, but in this case we're gonna use it for our advantages.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting because I think that young people are people that are seeking for truth. They're realizing that the narratives and the worldview that's pushed on the whole, it's just leading them down a black hole, and they're feeling more empty. They're feeling weaker. They're feeling dumber, and it's almost now, because things have gotten so silly in the world, or at least in American culture, things have gotten so silly. Orthodoxy, when people find it, it's like a counterculture. And, you know, that can be a good thing for people to look at it and then go, okay, what is this? And then obviously Orthodoxy is so much more than that. It's the purpose for which you were created was to be in the church. So it's much deeper than that. But I think it's interesting. And I think we are going to see more people get interested in Orthodoxy as a countercultural movement, kind of like the punk movement back in the day, but obviously not, you know, fully co-opted.
No.
Kind of like Death to the World. You know that magazine?
Yeah.
Yep.
Very good. Talking about governments and stuff, and you can see like the results of atheistic governments. Like a clear example for it is the Soviet Union, you know, who made so many martyrs, who like took care of like, or implemented abortion. Like millions of babies have died under atheistic governments. So you can see the results of atheism firsthand in history and nowadays as well. For example, in Holland, you know, babies can have euthanasia. It's absolutely horrible. That's what you do, like when you take away Christian morality.
That's crazy.
That's what happens. Yeah, it's horrible, bro. It's like kids,
I didn't
like
know that.
the parents can decide if the kid needs to die.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
It's called
Of
freedom.
course.
It's called freedom.
It's horrible, man. But, you know, let's talk about more about some of the results. What do you think atheism can have some like effect on a single person or individual? Some of the bad like effects.
Oh man, I mean the relativism itself, it's just like we talked about earlier. It's you're constantly reaching out to these things that don't actually fulfill you, because we're made with a purpose. We aren't some amorphous blob of cells that's just chasing the next chemical fizz. We have a purpose. You know, our overarching purpose, the most important one, is to be in communion with God. And then each one of us, you know, we have a bunch of little sub purposes of, you know, just the type of person we are. It's, you know, God's going to use us to do certain things day to day. And I think atheism, it leads to everything that isn't inherent in from the fall, right? Death, corruption, decay, things like that. It can be traced to the denial of God. And I think Father Seraphim Rose says that there are no atheists. There's no one that actually doesn't believe God exists, because the law is written on their hearts. But there's just those who deny God and who fight against him.
That's beautiful. I agree.
By the way, I have to go on one thing that you said earlier. So in the Netherlands, the woman can show she is pregnant and she will give birth to that child, even. And after the birth, even the parents can choose to euthanize the child.
Yes.
That's so horrible.
That's extremely horrible. And I don't think even the people who made that law realize the multiple dangers of that. It's not only murder, but also that system can be easily used by people.
No, they probably need to have like a medical reason for the child, but you know, it's still horrible. Yeah, it's insane.
A medical
Which
reason?
is,
What is this? Eugenics? Didn't we like
I
get
don't
rid
know.
of?
It's like some like chronic illness probably, or cancer. I don't know.
But I don't think we should even use the term euthanize for that. It's kind of like when people, and it's a fine medical term sometimes to use fetus, but now I think it's a subtle linguistic thing to depersonalize the baby. Instead of saying baby, you say fetus because it makes it sound
Yeah.
not personal. I wouldn't even use the term euthanize. I get you're just using the legal term, but I think it'd
Murder.
be smart if people in media, when they talked about this, they don't use euthanize. It's not a mercy killing. That's just a murder.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And this country is horrible. I'm telling everyone every single day, it's horrible. No, prostitutes rampant, drugs. It's insane. You can see at the religion numbers on this country. It's horrible. Everyone is atheist or Muslim, but
If those parents were forced to do the killing themselves and they didn't have government assistance to do it, I bet you none of them would be doing it. It's that kind of program that encourages that
Yeah.
kind of action.
we can already see the numbers in the US, like when Roe versus Wade got overturned, so many less abortions. It's glory to God, honestly, for that decision. I
Yep.
still think it should be illegal in every single state, no matter what, but that's not how the American system works, I think.
Well, real quick, Demos, on the note, I know you're mentioning how rough it is over in the Netherlands, how, there's prostitutes everywhere and there's so many, legal drugs and stuff. And they're so quote unquote free.
Yeah.
I have friends that went to Father Josiah Trenum's church for a while. And I remember one of my buddies, he moved from Southern California over to Tennessee. And I remember talking to him, and Father Josiah would tell people, because they're in Southern California, he would tell people, hey, if you feel God wants you to move, I'll pray about it too, and I'll try to give you guidance, and I want you to go where God wants you to go. But over time, generationally, California can change due to the glory of God through good Orthodox Christian communities. And that's something that can happen on a small scale at first, of course, but even in the Netherlands,
Yes.
you go out, you're having a beer with some people at a bar and they say something atheistic, and you start up a cordial conversation with them, challenge them a little. You never know if 2 years from then that guy is going to go, oh my gosh, that guy was right. I'm going to go check this thing out and at least investigate.
Yeah, I do see an increase in converts, not as much as in America, but a little, which is something. And that's what I'm trying to do with my work as well, get the message out there. And all of you guys do the same, obviously, on the Orthodox Christian Discord. But yeah. Go
Like
ahead.
I used to be, or I used to kind of hold more of an agnostic position, but it wasn't like I didn't really think about it though. Like I didn't like mentally choose, oh, I'm agnostic or atheist, but it's it's kind of like what y'all said. It's kind of dark, or everything's very like hectic or anxious. Like there's a nausea with like life, and but I think it's relieving to know that I think going through that, because usually or sometimes you may see someone that's atheist, or like they hold a very strong position. You don't think necessarily that these guys will never like come to the church, or these guys will never like find peace and communion with God, but like you never know. And I think it's kind of good. I like what you said, Chase, about what Sarah from Rose said on no one's really atheist, they just like deny God. I think that was really good.
And,
Yeah.
and Father Ananias will say things like, and I totally agree with him. And if people haven't, they should definitely subscribe to Patristic Faith's YouTube channel. It's Father Deacon Dr. Ananias's YouTube channel. He's amazing, criminally undersubscribed, but he'll say, and he'll talk about the argumentation that him and Jay, worked with me on for a long time to learn. And he would say that, the goal here is to remove these alleged intellectual barriers to God so that all that's left standing is naked stubbornness. And he'll say that this is not, and I agree with him, it's not an actual intellectual issue. Things will be put forward as if it's the intellectual issue, just like demons will put forward a million things to go, oh, here's your problem, or here's this good thing, when it's really not the case. But really what it is it's a spiritual issue. And an approach that we like to take is through the intellect. And then, Orthodox Meme Squad does a great job of, memetics, humor, right? And that's huge. That's very important in the culture war. And then I know in your interview with Kyle, you talked about, beauty, right? And there's all these different avenues, but at the end of the day, it is a spiritual issue. And I know that's not an argument. If some atheist wandered over here, that's not my argument. You can come argue with me elsewhere, but it's a spiritual thing. It's not actually intellectual. It's a thing in our heart.
Yeah, definitely. And you start thinking with your brain, you might have doubts. I think I can speak for all of us. Probably all of us had some doubt in our minds that one day that maybe God isn't real. Maybe there's nothing out there, but I'm pretty sure that's like just demons. Just messing up with our thoughts and stuff. So, but I always threw these thoughts away quite fast. I don't know if someone else used to be atheist here. I never truly was, even though I had some of those thoughts in my mind.
Well, I had experience with those thoughts when I started studying psychology. So I would read a lot of literature, whether it would be Jung or Nietzsche. And
Carl Jung.
Carl Jung.
It's an inside joke on the Discord server. We make a lot of jokes about Carl Jung.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember at that time, my faith was at the lowest. And after being like 3 to 4 years secular, and during that time I read also Bukowski, and to this day I can't remember what kind of lines from Bukowski I read, but after I read those, I got a panic attack for the first time in my life, and I felt bad for 2 days. And then later on, with the stress of university and the health of my dad, I had a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. And then going back regularly to church helped me a lot, because before that I only went for holidays, whether it was Christmas or Easter. But after that I went every couple months again. And then when I started going again every Sunday and every Vespers, the anxiety and all of the other problems were gone.
Beautiful story. Sky, did you have any? Because you're a Protestant, and that leads fastly to atheism.
Well, here's the thing, because I was I guess from a young age, I was always trying to learn more about God and striving to know truth, because I was kind of though I was brought up in a Protestant household, it wasn't religion wasn't very pushed on me at all. Regarding so I remember I can remember I was maybe 10 years old, and I asked my dad what that building was, and he said it was a church, and I said, oh, I want to go to one of those one day. And I was 10, because I wanted to go to church. I just had this drawing towards church. And then I went to a Protestant church for 10 years of my life, and something was just you know what, this just isn't feeling right. This something's missing. So then I ended up becoming Orthodox. But within that 10 years that I was Protestant, yeah, I had certain doubts, but I always kind of in my brain, I always got rid of them, and I always prioritized having faith and all that over any doubts or any of that stuff. Casting those doubts out of my mind and trying to prioritize my faith, and that's something that I was always keen on doing. So that way I wouldn't really succumb to those things. And sure, I had moments in my life where I was in periods of, I guess you could say, lukewarmness, as Protestants would call. And yeah, but I always ended up, glory be to God, coming back, and then eventually digging deeper and deeper, especially at the start of the Kuf, as some people call it. I read the whole Bible, started putting things together, searching more, and then, well, the whole Protestant Bible, so 66 books. Started putting things together, started searching, joining OMS, like the Discord server and all that, meeting cool people like Milos here, and everybody here actually, Milos mainly, but and then started getting pushed more towards going to an Orthodox church and becoming Orthodox, and that kind of was my whole journey through that. But yeah, I had doubts kind of like you, but I would never consider like myself ever secular at any moment in my life.
No, me neither. Chase, what about you?
Let's see. I think when I was probably, but when I first started going through puberty, I was an atheist for like a year and a half, and I was just
see.
angsty and pissed off. I was just pissed off.
Yeah.
And then I had a long hippie phase from probably 16 to 21, and I was extremely perennialist. I understood basic philosophy, but not to the extent that I do now. I had a bunch of holes, but I went through a perennialist phase. But my atheism phase was, I think it was really just puberty.
It was just a phase. It was just a phase.
It was just a phase. Yeah. That's truly what atheism is, in my opinion. I've never met a single person who's been atheist his whole life or her life. I think it's truly a phase. Eventually, even on their deathbeds, they will believe. They will. And they secretly do sometimes, even. Strahinja.
Yeah, I'm blessed in a sense that right now I'm not tempted so much to like just stop believing or like having these thoughts like, or what if God is not real, or what if all of this I'm doing is in vain. I'm blessed in a sense that for some reason those thoughts just don't come to me right now. But I have a friend, my best friend is very much like that, and he speaks to me all the time about those things. Like some people, very smart people, unlike me, get those thoughts very often, and I came to understand that for him this is going to be a lifelong struggle. And other people who I read wrote like that, other Christians who I read, like for example, Soren Kierkegaard wrote like how he was, having to rationalize his faith on paper for himself to, start believing again. And I never really went through that. For me, when I was a teen, I was not going to church at all, and I was not even consciously, I was atheist, I guess, or just kind of, I was believing God exists, but I believed that the stuff I was doing was okay because everybody else did it, and I gave it no further thought. Like, oh, I'm going to, do these drugs. That's fine, because everybody else is doing it, so why not? Oh, I'm gonna, sleep with this girl. Yeah, it's fine. Everybody else is doing it. It's cool,
Yep.
I just didn't even realize like what I was doing, kind of. So I mean, that's how it went for me most of the time. And then when I grew up, I guess I started living a more serious life, having a job and stuff. At one point, I was like, okay, now let me try fasting again. Let me try going to church again. Or what is really the good thing to do? And now I'm just so far away from all of those things I used to do, like parties, drugs, excessive drinking. All of that stuff is like really, really behind me. It's not that I'm good in any way. It's just that I live a lifestyle that's like easy. It is easy for me not to go do any drugs because I don't know anybody who has some. I don't know where even to get them anymore. So it's like
You're in
I'm
France.
glad
What do you
to-
mean?
Yeah, I mean I could essentially, but like I don't have young friends anymore who like I used to, where we used to go to like raves
Yeah.
and stuff. And I just haven't been in such a long time, and it's just like I lost contact slowly with those people. We just lost touch, and now it's like it's all gone. But yeah, I recommend if you're struggling with that to read you can read Soren Kierkegaard. He makes a good argument towards why is it morally just and morally better to believe, because even if atheism is definitely more pleasurable in the instant, like let's say God doesn't exist and all of these things that are bad, are actually just good for you. So let's say you can have as much sex as you want, you can have all the fun that you want, feed your ego as much as you want. That's really what feels good inside for a lot of people. What's really pleasurable for them, it's like to go out and do those things, feed the self, get more power. Doesn't matter if you're backstabbing somebody, doesn't matter if you're lying. Do it, just do it to feel good, and that's what's gonna feel good. But in the end, God's promise is eternity close to Him, eternity to that greatness that is God, and that is so much bigger than anything you can gain in this world by being sinful. That it's not worth it, even if it doesn't exist, even if God doesn't exist. It's not worth it to go out and sin. It's not worth it to throw your life away to these instant pleasures, because in the end, if God truly is real, then you are bound to an eternity of coldness, an eternity of distance, and in the end, an eternity of suffering and regret. So I mean, what's better? Don't lie now, and don't do something that's in the long run probably going to be a bad decision, or like do prevent yourself, and then also prevent yourself from suffering for eternity. I'm speaking English, so I'm not sure if I'm clear, but yeah, sin pleasurable in the moment, good for now. In the long run, even in this world, probably a bad idea. Not sin, and abstaining and being faithful, maybe
Yeah.
boring right now, probably in the long run a good idea. And also eternity next to God, which is so much bigger and so much better than any
And
pleasure you can gain from like anything that's here on this world. So yeah.
and this message is also for Christians, by the way, not only atheists.
Yeah, of course.
I want to get into a little bit like how we should treat atheists. They often put comments down like, "Oh, you believe in Sky Daddy," blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. Like, how should we engage in productive dialogue with them, Chase?
Just anything, but basically, if you've seen Jay Dyer, he's evil. He's one of the worst people who's ever existed. Just nothing like him. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, I love Jay. I mean, so it's you treat them like a person. Obviously, I mean they're a human, but I think you should differentiate between the person and the ideas. And when they come in and they do the Sky Daddy thing, first off, I mean, 9 times out of 10, I don't engage people in text chat debates. I hop on a voice chat with them because they'll just ignore everything I'm saying on text, and I'm not going to waste my time after debating, hundreds and hundreds of atheists for hours and hours and hours. But treating someone with respect and treating them lovingly, that's not always just talking like this and putting the nice kid gloves on and really soft and speaking to them like a child. Being loving can go, okay, so you say anything that's not physical is a Sky Daddy. Okay, well, where's your physical proof for logic, a self, an external world, all these things? Oh, those are just axioms. I have to assume them. Well, you believe in a Sky Daddy then. That can be moving, right? And I think, when it comes to stuff like this, people will like to piety signal. Like, I made the joke about Jay earlier because he'll get piety signalers going, oh, he's mean. He made a joke. And what these people don't realize, and what my priest has told me especially, is, it's when you're speaking to people in these dialogues, just like the saints did. I'm not calling us saints or anyone in our circle a saint. They would get heated. They would use rhetoric. But if it's sinful or not, that's going to depend on your heart. I had to confess, there's 2 years ago, I was talking with a Calvinist for 3 hours, smashing all this different stuff. And after 3 hours, he repeated the same thing that he tried for the first hour. And I lost my patience with him. And I said something about John Calvin saying he was demonic and that their God was a monster. And I didn't say it to explain it. I said it literally to press a button. Dude, yeah, I had to go and confess that. And I talked to my priest about it. And he said, and obviously I'm not a spiritual person. I want to be, I try to be, but I'm not a guide in any way. But my priest told me, he said, there's nothing wrong with the content of what you said whatsoever. You're 100% right. But the direction of your heart, your orientation was just to get a rise out of this person, and I think that when we're dealing with any other worldview trying to do apologetics, that's the big thing to realize is, okay, I can attack the ideas. I will smash them. Sometimes in debates, I'll get to the point where I've been talking with them for an hour or two or three, and I'll start holding their feet to the fire where they've denied a self. Every time they say I say, wait, you denied that earlier. You can't say I. They go, oh, okay. And then they go and they say something about a metaphysical concept, and I go, whoa, stop talking. You can't say that now. And they'll get really frustrated, but I won't do that to be annoying. I'll do it to hit a point where I go, look, this is how ridiculous of a position you're in now.
Well explained, indeed. It's all about the direction of your heart. And I agree. should
I
all
have a
treat it-
question to that.
Yeah.
Because I recently watched the episode where you debated the woman who was an atheist.
Mhm.
And I got pretty frustrated watching that because she would like go on for like 10 minutes saying a lot of stuff, but empty stuff, like a politician. You know how they talk much, but there is nothing
Yeah.
behind it. And I was just like, I don't have any patience anymore. There was like, and I'm like wondering, how do you have the patience to listen to that?
Yeah. I
Or
think
what's a good way to build up patience for people?
that's a great question. I mean, when I have done, a bunch of debates. So in this area of my life, I've done, hundreds and hundreds of debates through Discord and just so many times that with that, I feel like I'm patient. And in that debate, I did cut her off at points, and I had to explain, this is a debate. You're ignoring my question. You're just asserting things again, or you just lied and said I said something I didn't say. and I would cut her off. But I think patience, I mean, I'm sure I probably, Saint Nectarios probably has good writings about how to cultivate patience.
For sure.
A bunch of saints probably have writings about that. But when I engage with debates, mentally, I'm saying to myself, I'm locked into this engagement for, 3 hours and I can't leave. And so I want to get the points across. I want the people listening to understand, and hopefully this person, but I'm not leaving. And if I rage, I'm going to lose rhetorical points. And I think also I try to remember, not that I do this all the time, that you never know what seeds you're going to plant that years from now, God's going to bring forth fruit from, because that person chooses to listen. So, but yeah, I would say Saint Nectarios probably has writings on it. I don't know how to cultivate patience with it, just practice with that, but actual patience, I don't know.
It's hard to learn. It's very hard.
Yeah.
It's a skill basically.
Yeah, but thank you for that. I have big respect for those guys who can do those debates.
For sure.
I lost my patience watching the debate. So that's
You should watch
a sign
the one with
how
the guy
bad
on
I
the
am.
Union if you want to lose your patience.
Yeah.
Again.
With who?
The guy Stanley Terry on the Crucible, he denied the hypostatic union, and he was just yelling the whole time. And I would use an analogy or just ask him a question. He would go, I got no idea what you're talking about. I got no idea. And then he'd be like, you look ridiculous. And at one point, Jay called in, and Jay used a screenshot of my opponent as his picture. And at one point,
I saw that. I was in that chat. I
at
remember
one point,
that.
Stanley, my opponent, goes, you look ridiculous right now. And it's Jay with his profile picture.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah. Definitely check that out, guys, if you haven't yet.
Strahinja, I just want to say that you did have some background noise, slight background noise, like last time. Sorry.
Echo? Maybe
Yeah,
echo.
Yes. So, on the topic of debates, what are your future plans? Are you planning to have more debates in the future? Are you planning to upload on your own channel? Or
Yeah,
what's the plan?
definitely more debates in the future. Andrew Wilson and Zen Shapiro, who run the Crucible, that's a great channel. People should watch it. It's a debate channel. They do a great job, and I have, definitely have more debates planned there. Nothing to announce right now. One of them eventually should be a pretty big guy that you guys have heard of before, but haven't scheduled it yet. Trying to get through Lent. Got some other things going on. And yeah, definitely more debates. YouTube channel, I pretty much focus on music for that. I don't really upload to YouTube right now. I'm very active for now on Instagram. I'm trying to build that up and getting more active. Possibly, I'll just say, yeah, me and Resident Sleeper are gonna start a small YouTube channel. It's gonna be pretty humorous, but it should be pretty good. We'll see what happens with that. That's a bit away though.
For the
Sounds good.
viewers, what's the Instagram name?
At Chase Haggard Music.
Make sure to follow him. There
Make
will
sure
be a
to
link in
follow
the
him.
description.
Strahinja, you follow him, especially since you're a jazz musician too.
There we go.
You're
Strahinja
muted.
muted.
He's still talking.
Oh,
Oh no, the
and
phone.
everything fall down.
But yeah, no, and if anybody, you know, wants to debate me, they can do it anytime on the Discord. I'm not going to waste my time though doing a scheduled debate on the Crucible with someone who is kind of a goober. Done enough goobers, but also something to bring up is that on the Orthodox Christian Discord, we are starting up towards the end of next month, starting up more regimented help and like training to try to help other people do apologetics, to hopefully find the people who, you know, want to do public apologetics and train them in these things that it does take a while to learn, but train them in the methodology of how to think through these things and how to walk through these philosophical questions. Because the goal for that server from the get-go by Jay was to arm people, obviously be used by God to facilitate people converting to Orthodox Christianity, which obviously God has used Jay a lot to do that, glory to God, but also to train up apologists. So if people want to join it, you know, we want to help people. We want to get people armed and ready.
Sounds good.
I'm back.
think-
I'm sorry for that. It's gonna make for some really funny edits. I already know.
It's good. It's all right.
Yeah, I was just asking, like, what kind of music were you making? But that's all right. We can talk about that off screen.
No, it's all good. So on my Instagram, it's mostly indie rock stuff. You will find some gypsy jazz, some 1930s swing music. I got a bunch of old songs I'm going to release at the end of the year after I start building up my Instagram a lot more through being, you know, consistent. I know that's what I got to do to build it up, but yeah, it's like indie rock mixed with gypsy jazz.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to checking it out. Thank you for the recommendation.
All right. Now it's time for some plugs that we can do. We started a new website, guys. It's theorthodoxsquad.com. It will be in the description. We worked hard on it. We have all our content right there of the podcast, of the main channel. We started a column or a blog, as you might say, and we are looking for to become a news outlet as well in the future. We've worked together with Trisayon Films, UB Petrus, different priests that write columns as well. So definitely check that out. And I started a new merch website. Sorry, shameless plug, but check out my new merch website. We'll post it in the description. Got some fresh Orthodox designs there. So Chase, I want to thank you very much for joining. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
very insightful.
Blast.
Yeah. You're definitely welcome to come on again sometime if you like, of course. You're a busy man, so are we.
This episode definitely deserves a part 2. I think there is like some subjects that we'll not have time to touch on now, but I think are really good because like there is some big communities of atheists out there, especially the scientific community, definitely promoting atheism now. And I can see that in academia. And often like individualism is promoted within like male-oriented communities. So like, so sometimes sports communities or even like people who are like willing to be masculine are often resistant to the church. And I feel like those two things are easily addressed, and we should definitely, when you have time, of course, make a part 2 to speak about those things, because I think they deserve to be spoken about.
Yeah, definitely true. We might do that in the future. So if you're in the pit, deep in the pit of atheism, you know, in the well, and it's dark, you can't get out, but there's always a way. Just climb a little bit up You can see the light, and that light is Christ. So get out of it as soon as possible.
Get out
Thank
of
you all
here.
for joining. And thank you for watching. God bless.